Yeah, 1, 2, check.
Check.
Oh, okay, what are we doing?
Get some brisket.
Sweet, okay. Hey, welcome back to Bod BBQ. Today we're doing the king of all meats. We're doing the full brisket. This is one of the greatest cuts of meat. It's sort of the holy grail for barbecue. And I'm gonna show you how to do this in the most simple fashion. This is gonna be the easiest cook ever. We're doing it out on the pellet grill. I'm currently running a 50-50 mix of hickory pellets with charcoal pellets, and it gives a really great barbecue flavor. For this big, huge piece of meat, you want some sort of smoke flavor that's really gonna stick to the meat. Hickory is good for this. Pecan is awesome. I just didn't have any pecan pellets left, so we're doing hickory tonight. You can do pretty much any wood that you want. I'd stay away from fruit woods really, and go for more of those robust woods. If you're doing mesquite, really chill it out because mesquite is an extremely heavy flavor. So this one, I'm doing hickory. It's gonna be awesome. Doing a really simple seasoning on this today. We're just going to be using some Hardcore Carnivore Black seasoning, and we're also going to be adding another layer of our killer Hogs Texas brisket rub, which I haven't used yet, and this is exciting. This is going to be our crunchy layer on top of this Hardcore Carnivore Black. Something really interesting about this one is it has activated charcoal. One of the things that we tend to struggle with when cooking brisket on a pellet grill is getting that really nice dark bark. Sometimes you get more of a mahogany color, maybe sometimes the color of your rubs or the seasonings you put on. And this activated charcoal really gives you that meteorite, really dark color onto your brisket. One of the other things we're gonna do is we're gonna be adding some Wagyu tallow to our wrap once we wrap. But let's get started here. Before we get to the wrap, we have to trim up this brisket. So first things first, what is a brisket? It's really two pieces of meat. This is a whole brisket, got it from Costco. It has the fat cap here. You can see this is all kind of gelatinous fat. And then in here, there's a separation of the muscles. You have the flat, which is on the bottom. This is the flat. And then you have the point, which is up here. And this meat right in this section is that really juicy, moist brisket. And then this down here in the flats is those perfect slices of brisket. What we're going to try and do is once we slice the brisket flat, we want to see that it hangs down, where if you bounce it, it kind of claps together and it has a perfect pull apart and a really delicious bark, and all of that smoke flavor that embeds in it is going to make for a really delicious brisket. So let's get started. First things first, how do we trim this up? There's a million ways to do it. Everybody has their method. First thing I start with is any of this silver skin. All this membrane that you see, it's just that muscle membrane, and we call it silver skin. So first things first is taking that off. I like to just sort of cut a tab, then let the knife do the work. And I'm gonna try and take off as little meat as possible. However, I'm going to shape this brisket up as well. Be mindful of the direction that the fibers of the meat are going. This is the grain of the meat, and you can see here these big fibers are going this way. So when we slice it, we want to cut against the grain. That means we're going to make slices this way in the flat. Now the interesting thing is, you can see that the point muscle fibers are in a different direction. When we get to the point where we're slicing, we're gonna have to slice it in a couple different directions. So I'll show you that after it's cooked. I'm gonna keep cleaning this meat up a little bit. Now what I used for this is a really nice sharp boning knife. I have a 6-inch Wusthof boning knife here. I love this knife, it's fantastic. It's probably my favorite knife for this type of work. You can see it's just gliding through this meat. It's nice to have a super sharp knife so that you can really just kind of glide along, and the instrument does the work. You don't have to force anything. You don't get a lot of jagged edges on your meat or anything like that. Something I want to do here is you can see how thin this flat is right here. That's not something we're gonna wanna eat. So I'm gonna start shaping this out a bit. I'm gonna take the end off. You'll see that, come on. And you can see here that some of this meat has become oxidized. I guess that's the term for it. Really what's happening is when they slaughter the cow and they have the meat hanging, they will spray the side or the quarter of beef with a solution, with boiling solution, and it will create that oxidation on the outside. It's nothing toxic or anything like that, but it's really not pleasing either. Here I'm just rounding out the flat, taking off that piece that I don't think anybody's gonna wanna eat. Taking off this point where you can see it's a little too thin. Just rounding it out here. You can see we have some nasty oxidation over here on the side. This is a perfect example. Looks really gnarly. It looks like something nobody wants to eat. And nobody does want to eat that. Slice it off. Something a lot of pitmasters like to do is they'll find where the grain is and they'll make a straight cut right there. And it's a little bit of a waste. You know, you can make burgers out of this and set that meat aside because that's all reusable. This way, you know, this is where my slices are going to go once this brisket's completely cooked. Now I'm going to carry on with taking off this oxidized nastiness here. One tip that I suggest, it's not mandatory, but it makes life a little bit easier. Make sure your brisket's nice and cold when you're trimming it. Cold meat is easier to slice. You can see that this knife is just kind of going through it, you know? And this fat's not melting in my hand. It's still really solid. Right here, a lot of oxidation here. I'm taking that off as well. And don't be afraid to do as much or as little as you want. It's really easy to get carried away with this. I would say take off anything that looks nasty, leave everything else. One of the big tips from a lot of the pros like Aaron Franklin and those kind of folks is to make it aerodynamic so there's no sharp points. It's a good tip. I tend to sometimes try to follow that, not all the time. Sometimes I'll have little corners and things like that. All right, that is the bottom of the brisket. Now, onto the fat cap. What we're going to try and do here, and this doesn't look too bad, it's actually a pretty nice covering, but some of this fat's a little nasty looking, and we want to leave about a 1/4 of an inch of fat. That's the standard amount of fat cap that you want to leave on, because when you have your flat slices, you have that little layer of fat on top that has that bark on there, and that's really the flavor that you're looking for. So I highly suggest that at least on the flat, you keep all of this fat cap on here. Another good tip is on the point side, you don't really need all this fat on here. There's lots of interlaced fat through here. There's a ribbon of fat that goes right through the middle that separates those two pieces of meat. So in that case, I can sort of get rid of this ugly stuff I see here. And this allows us to put rub on the other side as well. Get a little bit more flavor in there. You don't have to leave the fat cap either. Totally up to you. These cooks are not gospel. I keep getting questions on the videos that we have out there. Make it the way you want it. This is just how I do it. I'm not working in a kitchen anywhere or doing anything like that. You can feel free to make this barbecue your own, make adjustments, make it however you want. Use whatever seasonings you want. Trim it however you'd like to. There is no right and wrong way, I promise you. I've made stuff every which way, and sometimes when you do things the unorthodox way, it comes out even better. You can make it your own. Right, babe?
That's right.
That's a big gnarly wad. And so something I'm looking at as I'm doing this, and this is a really important thing. I don't think a lot of people talk enough about this part. I'm trying to make this brisket as evenly flat as possible across the entire thing. Now this side obviously has two muscles. It has that point and it has the flat. On this side, it's just the flat. So I'm trying to compensate a little bit here by taking off the fat. As we already said, it's a secondary positive benefit to taking this off, as you get it a little bit more flat for even cooking. And you can see I'm just sort of going through layers right now. There's no rhyme or reason here. All right, so we have this brisket all trimmed up. Now, like I said, all I did was take off some of that silver skin, little of the clumps of fat. On the other side, I took the fat cap off of the point side and sort of evened out that whole brisket. And then I left about 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch in some spots on that flat side, but that's all the fat that was on there. We got this one from Costco, by the way. This was about an 11-pound brisket, not a super big one. I'm doing an overnight cook, so it might be more like 13 or 14 hours because I'm gonna run this really low. I'm gonna start it at 200 degrees so that the pellet grill has a chance to really get some smoke onto this. It's not like doing an offset where you have that constantly burning fire. So we need to really utilize these pellets in the best way possible. And to do that is the lowest that you can burn these pellets, the more smoke you get. Now on the Silverback Alpha, we also have the Alpha Smoke Control. You have PID that runs dead on the target temperature. And then we have the Alpha Smoke. And that allows more of a fluctuation in temperature to apply more smoke to the meat. So let's get this thing seasoned up here. I'm gonna add a binder. You don't have to. I'm just gonna add a little bit of Worcestershire sauce on here. Some wash your sister sauce. So I'm just gonna put a little bit on here. I'm using the Leah and Perrins, of course. Leah and Perrins, however you say that. Is that how you say that? Leah?
Leah.
Leah.
Or Lee. Who knows?
Or Lee? All right, just rub that in. Just enough to get it wet, honestly. That's what she said. All right, and then, yeah, so this activated charcoal, it's not gonna do anything bad to you. Food grade charcoal, not gonna hurt anyone. This is a big, huge piece of meat, so go ahead and add a good layer on there. By the way, I always keep one dirty hand, one clean hand for the rub. The finishing rub I'm putting on here is the Killer Hogs Texas Brisket rub. It's got all kinds of chunky, good stuff in here. I'm sure most of you already have seen this, and you can see that I am putting on a decent layer. You can use whatever rub you want if you want to make your own. One of the best rubs you could possibly use is 50/50 kosher salt and 16 mesh ground black pepper. It's kind of the perfect rub. I like using different stuff to get different flavors. And I haven't tried this Texas brisket rub from Killer Hogs yet, and I trust Malcolm Reed. That guy really knows what he's doing. So here you can see, here's where we still have the fat cap on the flat side. And of course our point side is nice and trimmed down. We're gonna be doing the same thing. Just a little bit there, a little dab will do you. And then same thing, that Hardcore Carnivore Black, which we have used before. It is delicious. And like I said, this is gonna help get that really nice dark finish. It also imparts a lot of great flavor too. It's not just about the color of the finish. Smuggling gunpowder?
Smuggling drugs to you. And
Oh.
you know, because it was black, so I had to pull all of it out during TSA and show that I was just giving my husband barbecue rub.
So remember that if you're traveling with your rubs, you might want to have a, you might want to preempt.
Check them.
Yeah, check them. Yeah, exactly. Or if you do bring them with you, let the TSA agents know that it's not gunpowder or something like that. All right, that looks pretty good. And then, of course, follow it up with this Killer Hogs. And like I said, big hunk of meat can take the seasoning. So I'm really packing it on there. And you can see this stuff is a little bit nasty to work with. Look at that. Looks like I've been working in the coal mine. I'm gonna let this set. We're gonna want this rub to really sink into the meat. And I'm gonna go get my smoker fired up. I'm gonna put it at 200 degrees right now on that alpha smoke mode so that by the time it's all heated up, this will be ready to go and we can just throw it in there. All right, so we're out here at the grill. We got the silverback fired up. As I said, we've got it down. Oh, it's sitting at 230 right now. That's part of that swing. At 230, once we put this meat in, it's gonna drop down, and then it's gonna level out right around 200. Probably swing about 15 to 20 degrees each way, but it's no big deal to me. You can see this rub is really set on here. It's nice and damp. You can see that it's really sunk in, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes or so. I'm just gonna go ahead and place it right here in the center of the rack. And however you place this is how it's gonna cook. I'm putting the point side over here towards the hotter part of the box and my flat side away from more of the heat. Oh, that's good smoke coming out of there. All right, and then just close it down. By the way, it's about 11 o'clock right now. I'm putting this brisket on at 11 o'clock so that by the time we wake up, it should be at its stall and it should have a nice mahogany bark. I'm not gonna do anything to it. I'm literally gonna put this on and go to bed. I have this Govee meat thermometer I'm trying out. I got it for like 40 bucks or something. It's actually awesome. It's got Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and 4 ports and it's great. So I'm going to try it out for this brisket cook. I'm gonna stick one in the flat and I wanna go right in the middle of the meat here. And I want to make sure that I'm halfway between the bottom and the top. So right about there. All right, now I'm going to take the second probe and I'm gonna put it into the thickest part of the point. Right there, right in the middle. And then the last one, I'm going to actually have as an ambient air probe. I'm going to see what the ambient temperature is over here and be able to monitor that from my phone. And I've got all of my temperatures. And then I'll be able to see them. From my bed, I can set alarms and stuff like that. Okay, so that's about it for now. I'm literally going to clean up our mess that we made over there on the island, and I'm gonna go up to bed. And when I wake up at probably around 6:30 or 7 o'clock, this brisket should be right about where I want it. And what I'm gonna do at that point, if it's at the right point, I'm either going to wrap it or I'm gonna let it keep going. If it's not ready yet, I'm gonna let it continue going at a low temperature and keep getting that smoke. If it is ready at that point, I'm gonna wrap it up and finish it off, and then we'll have brisket for lunch or dinner. We'll see what time it gets done. Okay, so it's day 2, it's the morning after, and we've been letting this go for like 11 hours now. We're at the point where we might be passing the stall right now. Our temperatures are around 175, and this is a great time to check the brisket and pull it off and wrap it up. So let's take a look at it here. So this is the first time we're actually getting a look at this sucker after I took the probes out. And you can see we've got a little liquid collection, that's good. We've got some nice color. That activated charcoal really did its job. Oh, the smell is tremendous. Oh, we're already
so good. Ooh, a little
look at
jiggly.
that. Yeah, rendering. So we still have about 30 degrees to go. So let's bring this inside and wrap it. So as you can see here, we have our 11-pound brisket, and it's cooked down. It's at a safe eating temperature right now, but we want to get the intramuscular fats to really render out. That's what makes a juicy, delicious brisket. Right now, it would be very tasty. This is something you could put in a chili, or you could braise it down into other things. You can make tacos out of it. But what we want is that delicious barbecued brisket. And so what we're gonna do is put it in this peach butcher paper. You can see I have 2 pieces of butcher paper that I cut to the desired length, and I'm going to be adding some Wagyu beef tallow. And you can get this all over the place. This stuff is the magic trick, honestly. This is, you know, there's a lot of lore about this. I started using it and it really does work. I don't care what anyone says. If they say it doesn't make a difference, they're lying. It makes a huge difference. I'm gonna be taking this tallow and I'm just gonna take a wad of it and I'm putting it on here. You can melt this down, you can squirt it on here, but I'm just getting a good layer. And this method for me allows me to really put it exactly where I want it. So I'm gonna take the brisket and put it right on top of there. Then I'm gonna take a little bit more and I'm gonna put it up here so that both sides get it. I don't think the fat cap necessarily needs more fat, but this one didn't have a huge fat cap on it. Now what this is gonna do is it's going to keep the bark intact, but it's gonna loosen it up enough to where when we slice it, it's going to stay there, but it's going to be easily sliceable. It won't be difficult to cut through. It won't be a hard, crusty bark. It'll be more like a supple, delicious, flavor-filled bark. So what I'm gonna do here is give this thing a fold. Fold up the back, fold in the sides. You want to get this fairly straight. Same with the other side. We want to roll this in. Okay, so now we have our delicious little parcel. What I'm gonna do next is I'm going to crank the grill up to about somewhere between 250 and 265. We're gonna finish off this cook. One more thing I'm gonna do, I'll show you out at the grill. Let's bring this back out. Okay, so I'm cranking the grill up. Let's just do, yeah, I'll leave it at 250 for now. I'm gonna crank that up to 250, and I'm gonna put this brisket right back where it was. And the last step, I'm gonna try and get probe in here. You want to feel for right about the middle where the flat and the point is and get it right into the middle there. We can see we're right at 174 right now. We want to get this up around 203 to 205 degrees. So I have that being monitored on this Govee meat thermometer here, which seems to be doing a pretty good job. All right, let's close this down. So one thing that I did note was these probes are not good for ambient temperature. It was reading like 45 to 50 degrees off. I kind of figured these aren't a typical ambient probe. This is an ambient probe. This came with my Thermoworks signals, which is kind of the industry leader, the industry standard for these types of at-home use meat thermometers. So these work awesome for ambient temperature. These not so much, but they seem to be doing a really great job at that internal meat temperature. If you're gonna get something like a meat thermometer, barbecue, this is really good for the internals of the meat. If you're going to be using it for that ambient temperature inside your grill, I highly suggest that you get an actual ambient probe, as these other meat thermometers don't seem to work as well. Okay, so as you can see, our internal temperature is at 205 degrees right now. This is about right where it's typically best. I'm gonna go ahead and crack this open. Let's take a look. Ooh, it smells good. Ooh.
Look at all the juices.
So that's what you want to see right there. That jiggle is perfect. Looks awesome. Looks like that tallow really did its job. You can see how juicy it is. Okay, 207 there. 203 in the middle of the point. 205 there, and in the flat. 203, perfect. Little bit more down at the end of the flat, that's okay. This is ready to come off of the grill. Go ahead and shut the grill down, and I'll show you what we're gonna do from here. So we got our brisket off of the pellet grill and we brought it inside. As you can see here, it's got that awesome wiggle you're looking for. I'm just kind of letting it chill out right now, let it stop cooking. But here's what we're really gonna do. It's been sitting here about 5 minutes or so, a little bit longer, and I wanna rewrap it. Now you can keep it in the same paper, or you can change the paper. I like keeping it in the same paper, keep that moisture in there. It's not really a big deal. I'm gonna wrap this back up. And now I'm going to take an old towel we use in the shop or out in the garage. I'm gonna lay this out and I'm gonna wrap it the exact same way. It's an old crusty bathroom towel we had. And I use it for barbecue now. So I'm literally gonna wrap it the exact same way that I did with the pink butcher paper. This is gonna insulate it a little bit as it rests. Now I highly suggest at least 60 minutes of rest for a brisket. This huge chunk of meat, it's a muscle of locomotion, so the muscle fibers are extremely tense. You can see we got that jiggle going because we've rendered down the fat, but this rest is going to allow the juices inside to redistribute throughout the meat and allow the remainder of that fat to render down. So I'm gonna do probably a 2-hour rest, but 60 minutes minimum. So once we get it in the towel, we're gonna put it in our cooler. This is a cooler we use for barbecue. And this just keeps it, again, insulated and protected. I'm gonna leave it just like that for anywhere from an hour to 2 hours, even up to about 3 to 4 hours, as long as the internal temperature of the meat never drops below 145 or so, but it's not even gonna get close to that. I guarantee you when I open this back up, because it's so insulated in this cooler, inside the towel, inside the wrap, it's still gonna be steaming when we open it up, but all those juices will be redistributed. So let's give it an hour, maybe 2, and we'll check on it. All right, so it's been about 2.5 hours that we let our brisket rest. Let's take a look at it. It's cooled down a little. All those juices have redistributed. You can see there's not so much shiny juice on the outside, of course, from that towel. But let's see what the inside looks like. Oh yeah. Oh, look at that. Oop. This looks awesome. This came out fantastic. Can't wait to, I mean, look at the jiggle in it still and the bend. It's exactly what you're looking for. So as we can see, this side is the flat, this side is the point. First thing we're going to do is to separate the two. Now it's usually, you can feel right where the flat and point are. Let's take a look at what we got here. Yeah, amazing. Remember that we had our little side where we cut against the grain. Let's go ahead and make some slices. Now I'm cutting these slices about 1/4 inch thick each. It's usually the rule of thumb for brisket. I'm just using a Victorinox knife. I'm just sliding right through. Let's select one right out of the middle. So that's what we're looking for. See here, the texture, and then this is the pull test. When it pulls right apart like that. And now the real test. Let's see how the taste is. Oh. Camera lady. Very good. Now you can cut off burn ends from this, but this brisket wasn't really big enough for that. So you can see I have my point side, and now we need to take a look. We still have the flat underneath here to some degree, but the point runs the opposite way. So I'm going to slice this one a little bit thicker. This one's going to be about 1/2 inch slices. It's looking great. So this is the good stuff. I love this. This point meat. It really is melt in your mouth. So good. You want to try a little bit?
Sure.
Oh, fuck. Sorry. Go ahead, Slash.
It's on my shirt.
Sorry. So as you can see, this is an extremely easy way to cook a brisket. This is a great way to get that great smoke flavor. The Pellet Grill did a great job. Running it low and slow all night long really imbued that smoke flavor into it. And it broke down all of the fats so that it's nice and juicy and tender and has that easy pull apart. I mean, it's just incredible. It's exactly what you want when you want this barbecued brisket. It's just so good. So if you follow this recipe the way that we did it, you're gonna get the same results, or at least similar. This happened to be a prime brisket from Costco. You can get them from anywhere. You can cook choice, you can cook prime, you can cook Wagyu or Angus beef, whatever. All of them can yield really great results if you just apply these simple principles. I think that Wagyu tallow is really the secret weapon to getting that juicy brisket without the crispy bark on top. Like Brandy said, you can really see the smoke ring on here. You can really see, you can taste the smoke flavoring in there. It's not too much. That's one of the good things about the Pellet Grill. You don't get too much smoke. I think a lot of folks tend to over smoke their food because they're cooking it like a competition style, when in reality, this is for our family. This is to eat around the dinner table, and we don't want to be burping up all that smoke later. We want just a delicious flavor that's going to settle well. And this is it. This is absolutely a great way to do it. There's a million ways to cook briskets. You can use whatever seasoning you want. You don't have to wrap it if you don't want to. You can just let it cook all the way up until that 203 to 210 range, somewhere in there. I usually pull mine around 205 to 207. And that's right at the junction of the point in the flat is where I take that temperature from. This one came out fantastic. When you get that jiggle, you know that your fat is rendered down. And when you cut into it, it looks just like this. It's fantastic. So I highly suggest you try this out. This is the easiest way I've ever found to do a brisket. It takes very little effort to monitor because you have the Pellet Grill doing that for you. If you want to use a stick burner, that's going to take a little bit more time and effort, and it yields a fantastic result as well. I've done both. I've done it on a Kamado style grill. They all come out fantastic. This is just the easiest way to have an awesome meal with the family and have brisket on the table for dinner. Give this one a try. Let me know in the comments how you did with it, if you enjoyed this, if you have other recipes or tips that you think are really great with brisket. Maybe we'll do a different kind down the line. So try this out. This is a great way to have that awesome barbecue flavor in your house without too much of a hassle. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We're gonna keep pumping out some videos, and this is exactly the kind of stuff that we're gonna be doing. It's absolutely awesome. We love doing barbecue, and we wanna bring more videos too. Thank you to everyone that has clicked on this video and has watched it all the way through to this point. It really inspires us to continue making these videos and putting them out there, knowing that people are actually wanting to watch the videos and are getting something from it. If you happen to use this video to make a brisket yourself and it turned out fantastic, or if it didn't, let us know what you did with your brisket that might be different than ours, or let us know if exactly this type of recipe worked for you. It's fantastic. We love brisket. We're gonna go eat it right now. Don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to the channel. Subscribing to the channel really draws more traffic to our channel. Therefore, we can continue putting out more videos like this. So thanks for your support. We really appreciate it, and looking forward to the next video. God damn it. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah. Hey everyone, please watch my stupid fucking videos.